Welcome back to the Own Your Awkward podcast. I'm your host, Andy Vargo, and every episode we get into what has made our guests vulnerable and how they've learned how to own their awkward in order to live their best life. Stay tuned so you can hear every awkward moment in today's show. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Own Your Awkward podcast. I'm your host, Andy Vargo, and today we have a very special guest for you, the CEO and founder of GW Distillery for CBD Oil and Hemp products. Welcome to the show, Scott Lester.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to be here.
So, Scott, why don't you, we're going to put you on the spot about being awkward here in just a couple minutes, but before that, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and where you're coming from.
Well, I'm actually in Michigan. I'm a transplant to Michigan. I grew up in Oregon, but I came to Michigan because I wanted to raise, race, and run sled dogs, believe it or not. And so I sold out everything over there and loaded up the dogs I had and moved to Michigan and started a semi-retired career, you might call it. And it was quite an adventure. I have been in so many awkward positions that you can't imagine, to the point where you've got 18 dogs on a sled dog line, and you stop, they kind of accordion together, and the next thing you know, you got dogs fighting one another. I've been, sitting there with dogs strapped around my legs and everything else, trying to hold dogs apart from each other because they want to bite one another. And you're out there by yourself. And you rely on yourself. So yeah.
I love how you call it a semi-retired career. I think there's a lot of semi-retired careers going on out there. That's awesome.
Oh yeah. So if I could do that every day, I still would.
So when you go on a sled dog adventure or race or whatever you're doing. Pardon me for not knowing the correct terminology, but when you're out there and you're on a course, is it like the movies? You're out for days at a time and you're pitching a tent and you got all your gear with you?
Yes and no. And the reason I say both of those, it depends on the race. I ran anywhere from mid-distance to long distance. You have your sprint racers, which are, a 5-mile course. That's it. Mid-distance, upwards of 200 miles. Anything longer than 200 miles is a long-distance race. And the longest one I've done was 300 miles. And luckily, those, you always have checkpoints. So you're going from point A to point B, which is another checkpoint. And so the race course is marked out. Along the way, you're on, little narrow true tracks, or if you're out west, they're called logging roads, but they're covered in snow. Or you might even be just following a snow machine trail. And you break, and you give them a break and everything. And when you're on distance like that, you're carrying a cooker with you so that you can melt snow for the water for the dogs, also for yourself. Most of the times, your sled will weigh roughly about 300 pounds. And it depends on the size of the race, how many dogs are attached to that sled. I've ran races where there's 14 dogs attached to that sled. If you're talking like the Iditarod or the Yukon Quest, those are 1,000-mile races. And yes, you're out there for days and days and days on your own.
Well, and just to even imagine like a 200-mile race, which I'm still floored by the fact that the threshold from 6 miles to 200 miles is considered mid-distance. And then you go 201 miles to get to long distance, because 200 miles seems pretty far to me. But
it is.
How long would it? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was just how many, like a 200-mile race, is that a 4-day race or a 1-day race or a?
Oh no,
it seems like a long.
It is roughly a 4-day race. You train your dogs in a longer distance like that. I mean, you start your fall training in September, weather permitting, and So you train them, and their top speed, they will go faster, but you train them to actually be 9 miles to 12 miles an hour. That's where you're training them to be at. That's their sweet spot.
Okay.
And once they hit that sweet spot, you just go and go and go, and you'll go for approximately 4 hours, and you'll give them a rest, not very many minutes, just a few, and off you go again. And, of course, you're carrying dog treats, which usually is frozen meat. These guys will burn about 10,000 calories a day, and that doesn't count you. You're back there. You're not riding the rails. You're jumping off and running along with the sled, because less weight on the sled means the faster you can get to the next point. And, I've been out on races where started the race, dogs looked good, everybody was happy, the vets checked them out, and they said, okay, you guys are good to go. Made the first checkpoint, stayed there for 3 hours, was headed to the next checkpoint. I was 3/4 of the way there, and stopped the dogs. They were getting slower and slower and slower. And so we stopped to give them a rest, and noticed that they just weren't looking good. They weren't feeling good. And long story short, I was there for 6 hours laying in 30 below temperatures next to them, waiting for them to feel better so we could make the last 2 miles and get where we needed to go.
Yeah, sometimes you just, when you need to rest or when your team needs to rest, and that's what it takes, which is you wouldn't have planned on 6 hours, right?
No, I did not.
Yeah, but you sure got to do what you got to do to make it.
And that's true, and it's all about the dogs. It really is. It's all about them. They're the ones that are doing the work. And, people always wonder, why do they do what they do? And the simple fact is, you train them from puppies to go from meal to meal, basically. And so they get fed at this checkpoint. They know there's another checkpoint somewhere, and you're going to get another big meal. So that's why they really do run. They love doing what they do. But, it's meal to meal, basically, is what it is for them. They enjoy doing what they do, and they wouldn't want to do anything else, believe it or not, other than be a house dog. They will be a house dog, but they'll eat your house.
All right. They're still looking for that meal, huh?
Oh, yeah.
So Scott,
you eat it. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're good.
Oh, I've had dogs that, you house them in the wintertime, believe it or not, in a 55-gallon barrel. The end's cut out of it. That's their house. Straw's in there and everything. They're nice and comfy. They got 3 coats of hair on them. But usually by the end of the season, they've ate most of that 55-gallon barrel, believe it or not. They just chew it because they're bored. And so when they're bored, they got to do something. And if they're not on the trail, they'll eat anything they can get their teeth onto. So.
Wow. This is amazing. So you've obviously had some adventures. What's something awkward you want to share that you've had to come to terms with or get over to get to where you are and be who you are today?
Well, I would say the most awkward a number of years ago was actually learning how to stand up in front of people, believe it or not, and give many, many speeches, whether it be as a sales trainer or anything like that, because in high school, I gave my very first speech and passed out. I locked my knees and passed out, and I said, you know what, I am never in my life ever going to be up in front of people ever again. And I put myself in a position where I was doing sales, and I became the sales trainer, and that was part of my job. And learning how to not get that nervous and not pass out was quite a challenge. It really is, or was. And the first one, it was rough. It really was. But got through it. And I'll tell you what, I can stand up in front of people and talk all day long. I'm nervous now, believe it or not, even though I'm doing, I'm sitting on where I'm at, but not like I ever was. Not like I ever was.
Right. Well, and just, I think about that. We all have some of our worst memories from high school. right?
Yes.
You don't want anything embarrassing to happen, period, whether it's out of your control or not. How did that feel when that happened? Like beforehand, were you dreading it, or was it a surprise that it happened?
It was a surprise that it happened. I dreaded it because even though they're, your classmates and everything else, high school, they make fun of you, they do this, they do that. And, here you've got to get up and do this, and you're like, oh, this is ridiculous. I just want to hide behind my desk, type thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you get up there, you prepared yourself, you're all ready to go, and you look at the class, and they're looking at you, and some of them, picked on you and stuff like that. It's just the way it is. And you're like, oh, my God, I'm dreading this. This is not fun. I don't want to be here. And that's when I know what I did. I locked my knees. I felt my mouth getting dry, the whole 9 yards. Words weren't coming out. Next thing I know, the teacher's standing over top of me as I'm waking up in the floor. And, that was quite embarrassing. As an adult, I think we could get through that. But as a high school kid, oh, my God, now I did this in front of everybody that knows me, and it was a small high school. But I have to say, nobody ever even talked about that. It never bothered them. They never said anything. So I'm thinking that they're like, okay, he did it. It's okay. Look at him. He failed. He passed out. No big deal. I can do this too. So in the long run, I probably helped everybody else.
Yeah, and how much of that afterwards, where you in your head you felt like people were talking about you and saw what happened, whether or not they were, you put that on yourself, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, a long time. I felt self-conscious. I mean, most kids in high school do. I wasn't one of those that got along with everybody and all that kind of stuff, and so you always feel self-conscious, and that really didn't help. But I got through it, and every now and then I think about it. So, yeah, it's fun. Mm-hmm. I don't mind.
Well, and you said you were working yourself into a position where you became a sales trainer. How long did that take to get you to that place where you knew you were going to have to tackle that?
Not very long. I was with that company probably a year, I believe, and the position opened up, and I was a good candidate. So they kind of tossed me in there and said, here's your script, and you get to hire and train everybody and all this good stuff. And I'm like, okay, cool. And they said, oh, by the way, your first ordeal, you're standing in front of all of them. So here it goes. And so first few classes were like, 10, 20 people. And then it got to where they got bigger and bigger and bigger. And the last one was just shy of 200 people. And I was like, holy crud.
Wow.
But, there was hiccups in the middle of it. There really was. But they didn't know any difference. And if you laugh and have a good time with it, they think it's all the way it's supposed to be. So,
right. And that's a good point. It's all about everyone seeing you comfortable as the facilitator or presenter. And then
that's correct.
No matter what happens, they don't guess about whether or not it was supposed to.
Right, exactly. It's like looking at a duck on the water. He looks good on top, but by God, he's paddling like crazy underneath just to stay up. So you don't see that part.
And you didn't have, and you didn't have a chance to, you didn't have much of a length of time, it sounds like, to really sit back and dread for a year, I'm working toward this position. It's like, I guess I got to figure this out quick. So, which can be a blessing.
And it really was, because I believe, and myself included, if you dwell on anything long enough and it becomes a fearful thing, which, fear is nothing to be afraid of, but you will dwell on it and it will cause you, have ulcers or whatever. And it's like, no, just get over it.
Mm-hmm.
Fear is nothing more than false evidence appearing real, and it's not real. So get over it and do it anyway.
No, that's exactly true. I just had a revelation the other day where I was dealing with some fear, and I kept thinking, I don't know why I'm afraid of these good things coming to light that I've been working on. And then I thought, am I more afraid of fear, or am I more afraid of like success or failure? And I put a poll out there to my friends, and I found out that it's about even down the middle on what people are afraid of, whether it's success or failure. So if you're going to be afraid of either, then why not? If you're afraid of both just as much, why not go for the good thing, right?
Exactly. It doesn't matter whether you do something or not physically. Either one of those is an action. Whether you're afraid of fear, that's an action. Whether you go forward, whether you're afraid or not, that's still an action. So you might as well go for the positive because you're still making an action somewhere along the way. So move forward.
Exactly.
Don't fall backwards. If you're going to fall face first. That way it's quicker and easier to get up and you're closer to your mark.
Now, do you feel like having that happen in high school, now that it's over and you're past it, do you feel like there's a way where that was almost more empowering, having that happen so young in life?
I believe it was. I really do, because right now I train people. In the position I'm in, and they're afraid of doing this or they're afraid of doing that. It's like, you know what? Just go for it. And it's like a stressful situation. I laugh, I chuckle. I don't like to be stressed out, even though I do a lot of stressful things. But if you teach people, especially the ones I'm working with now, that it's okay, no problems. If you're worried about it, just don't worry about it. Follow my lead. I'll tell you what, it makes it a whole lot easier. And so I don't fight fear at all. I've climbed mountains. I've done, all kinds of crazy things. So I used to be afraid of heights. So what do? I go learn how to climb a mountain. I've repelled. I've done all kinds of things. I refuse to have fear challenge me whatsoever.
That is amazing. And I think, we hear all the time about face your fears, and the best way to conquer them is to challenge them and put them right in front of you. Do you notice as you face a fear, a new one pops up? Or there's a new thing now you find out you got to go do?
Occasionally, that's true.
Yeah.
And it's like the business that I have now with GW Distillery. I've had a few businesses in the past that have not done well, and I've learned a lot from them. And so as this one's growing, it's fearful. Am I doing the right thing? Am I helping enough people? Am I doing this? Am I doing that? And, so there's a lot of fear there. But because of the fact that I've went through so many trials and tribulations in life, I don't let it stop me, none whatsoever. And so I just move forward. And if I'm wrong, I'll just recalculate. Simple as that.
Right. Well, and I'm glad you mentioned GW Distillery. So there's a story behind that on why that's kind of close to your heart, isn't there?
Yes, there is. My youngest daughter, who now is 32, was born with debilitating scoliosis through her life. And, as she aged, there was nothing that they can do for her. By the time she was out of high school, it was not fun for her. She would go to the doctor's office. Basically, they'd give her a script for pain medication and nothing that they can do. And a while back, she called me and said, "Hey, Dad, you know what? I am no longer taking pain medication." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, what are you doing?" And she said, "Well, I started taking CBD oil in a vaporizer." And I said, "Okay, I know what CBD is, but tell me some more." And so she did. Mm-hmm. And I said, "Hey, I got to understand what this is, because if it can help you, I need to know what this is." And so I did a lot of research, and that's why I started GW Distilleries, because from my research, I have found that CBD can help so many people. It is an alternate way of medicating yourself away from the pharmaceutical medications that are so toxic to your system. And the CBD that we carry has no THC in it. And so it's legal in all 50 states. And I mail it all over the place. People order from me all the time. So they can. Is there a website they can go to then to place an order or find you? How do we find GW Distilleries? It is a website, gwdistillery.com. That is correct. Perfect. And we'll have that loaded in this description here. And so just because a lot of people, in Washington, there's been a lot of talk around cannabis and marijuana.
legal in our state, so there's a lot of education that's gone in the last couple of years. But for people who might not know, when you say there's no THC in the CBD, what is the difference in those two, and why is that important?
Well, THC, if an individual understands, and they still do it. If you smoked marijuana, it has THC in it. And THC is a psychotropic reaction that, you get high and those kinds of things. So CBD is actually produced not from marijuana, but from hemp. And hemp, the process that we have, which is a CO2 extract, the hemp itself does not have THC in it at all. So we're extracting the good out of it, and so there is no psychotropic ability in the CBD that has no THC. And, CBD comes in many different forms, whether it's a pill form called a gel, whether it's a salve or whether it's the oil. There is no ability to even have the munchies. As a kid, we used to do that, and we get the munchies.
Right.
Well, that doesn't happen.
So you don't need to stock up on Doritos if you're...
No Doritos and no brownies.
All right. No, that's good to know, because I think a lot of people are afraid to try, CBD options because they link it to the idea of getting high, and they don't understand the difference between relaxing your body and your muscles and affecting things physically, which is different than what THC will do with your mind.
That is correct. And there's a lot of media that, there's negative media, and I'm not going to knock the media. I don't do that. But if they had all their facts, that would be great. But, they don't always. And so we're constantly educating people. And that's what I do. That's what we do at GW Distilleries. We educate people. And it doesn't matter whether they get it from us, as long as they have a good, reputable distributor that they can get it from. Ours is third-party tested. It is pharmaceutical grade. And we have, all the tests proving that. But we really just educate people. And, they're like, well, will it help with Crohn's? Yes. Let's talk about that. Will it help with seizures? Let's talk about it, and I can recommend. I'm not a doctor, so I don't. But it just is a matter of educating and allowing people to make an educated decision on what they want to do. With the opioid epidemic that we have right now, it's ridiculous. And so because of the CBD, we've helped a lot of people get away from the painkillers that they're addicted to. And there's more research out there day after day that just allows people to understand that this is a good alternative. You don't have to be stuck doing just what your doctor says. And there's a lot of doctors that are getting on board with this and recommending CBD versus the typical pharmaceuticals.
Oh, that's amazing. And it sounds like the CBD that doesn't have some of the addiction issues that you would have through prescription.
That is correct. I have not heard of anybody that has ever said, I'm addicted to CBD. No, never has. And CBD's been around, that I know of, at least 7 years. So, no, and it's not a gateway to anything else. So, nope.
Well, and for you to know that firsthand from your daughter's experience, that sounds like that must be so freeing for her has to have changed her life.
It really did, and she'll probably get mad when she hears this, but she now has, she's 32, got a couple young kids, and she finished high school, 32. Mm-hmm. She did not do a GED. She got her equivalent, and now she's in college. And
that's awesome.
She is really, because before she was like, I don't feel good, I don't want to do anything, very lethargic in a sense. And it has literally changed her completely. It's like not even knowing who my daughter is, but in a good way.
Right. That is amazing.
It really is. Yeah, it's changed her a lot. And I'm really, really glad that she started that and then, of course, put me on the journey that I'm on to help thousands of people as well. So I'm really happy for her. I really am.
It really is an amazing feeling when you see someone that you love open up and change their life. It's just
correct.
Nothing could make you happier, especially when it's one of your kids.
Exactly. I agree with that. And I got a lot of people that, and I tell that story to a lot of different people when they're talking about it. And I'm like, it's up to you. You have anxiety or you have, whatever it is that we're talking about. And I said, listen, this is what my daughter did. And this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And so I've told thousands of people that story. She just probably never heard it on a podcast.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think that knowing the root of where your business comes from and that you're not just jumping on a bandwagon to find profits for yourself makes a big difference in believing in your message.
I agree. I totally agree. And that's why I always tell them, it doesn't matter to me where you get the product. Just let me know if you have some questions. I'll even, refer you to somebody else. It doesn't matter to me. I'm not in it to make a ton of money. I'm in it to help hundreds and hundreds of people. So, yeah.
That is amazing.
It's a game changer. It's a game changer.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we're getting down to just a couple minutes here, but what's something you want to leave the audience with? Let listeners know, that they should deal with in life, or what's your words of wisdom that you're going to impart on us before we go?
I guess the best words of wisdom I've had, and I use this a lot, and we talked earlier about fear. The simple fact is, do not let fear intervene into your life. And the simple fact is, fear is nothing more than false evidence appearing real. And if you can understand and remember that every time you stand up in front of a group of people or go for a new job interview or anything else, don't worry about it. Just go for it, because every action has a reaction. And if you choose not to act and not do that job interview or whatever it be, you might not get where you want to be. So don't let fear interfere in your life whatsoever. That would be my words of wisdom to anybody.
I love that. Those are good words of wisdom, and I think words that we need to keep in front of us and not forget, because it's too easy to get caught up in whatever's in front of you,
Yep, it really is. I can guarantee it, and I know a lot of people that have, and I've helped a lot of people get over it. So, it helps. It really does. I guarantee.
Yeah, well, you've got a lot of great stuff going on. You've got a lot of great stories and wisdom, and definitely doing a lot of great things in the world. So thank you for that. Really appreciate it.
Andy, it has been my pleasure. I was a little nervous to get on here, but you know what? Again, it didn't stop me. I do what I do every day, and I don't allow it to get in my way. So I just move forward.
Yeah. I'm thankful that you are taking your own advice today and not letting fear keep you from getting on the podcast. So it's great.
It is my pleasure.
Well,
it is my pleasure, sir.
Well, Scott, it has been a pleasure to have you on. Everybody check out the links in the episode so you can track down Scott and find out more about what he has going on and support his business. And keep it real, keep it awkward. Have a great day. Scott, thank you so much for being on. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, Andy. My pleasure.
All right. Have a great day. Take care, everyone.
See you later.
Thank you so much for listening in for today's show. Be sure to visit awkwardcareer.com to continue your journey. And of course, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends so they can find their awkward side and learn how to own it.